You're watching Tech Talk in affiliation with Tech for Techs. We're a community that supports independent trade with the help of vendors and distributors. We're live every Thursday at 8 p.m. London time, and we'll be streaming to Facebook and YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. You can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Amazon, Google, TuneIn, and many more. And now, the moment you've been waiting for, and your host, Philip Griffiths.
Hello everyone and welcome to Tech for Tech Tech Talk, where we help your IT business grow. We've got a very interesting conversation or show tonight, should I say, and we're talking basically about mental health and you, or everyone who's watching at least. So if you've got any thoughts or comments about this subject, then feel free to comment in the chat below or to the side, depending on how you're looking at this. We've got 3 guests tonight. First of all, we've got Will, we've also got Ben, and we've also got our special guest, Naz, who will be telling us a little bit more about himself in a few minutes. First of all, though, if you would like to comment in the comments section and let us know, actually, if you can see us and hear us, because if you can't hear us and see us, we're just talking to ourselves, which is a totally different conversation. So, again, if you can comment in the chat, please, so we know that you are watching. Also, comment where you're from, so we can obviously reply to you and give you a shout out. Right, so let's go on to Will first. So, Will, if you want to introduce yourself, just let everyone know who you are and basically what you do.
Hi folks, my name is Will. I run a company called Consumer Tech, which is a managed service provider and break and repair company. I find this topic tonight quite interesting, and it affects me quite a lot as well, mental health issues. I'll give you a little bit of my background, which a lot of people don't know about, and it's probably the first time I've spoken out about it as well in a long time. I have a condition called fibromyalgia, which is a skeletal muscular, I think I'm pronounced that right, condition, which affects pain all over your body and things like that. And I've had some other issues as well. And depression is one of the topics that sort of come along with fibromyalgia. And I suffer depression in a really bad way, where I've been through all the doctors and psychiatrists and things like that as well. So it does affect me in a big way, and it affects my work in a massive way, simply because there's days where I can't really be motivated to go to work or get up and go to work. So I have 2 jobs basically. I work with a local authority, and I was there full time, but I had to go part time due to health reasons, and also then started my computer business, and it's difficult. You know, it's tough, especially with COVID. What's happened with COVID, mental health issues is a massive thing. It's going about the now, and I'm glad to see that we're doing a topic like this, and I'm glad to see that it's more on the television and things like that as well. So I'll talk about different things as the show goes on. So sorry, I've probably just went over my time period there for introducing myself, but that's me. So I'll let the others go and have a wee chat now before I get started.
That's no problem, Will. Thank you for introducing yourself. And obviously, again, and this is thank you for everyone who's going to take part tonight, is basically thank you for being honest about what's going off. And it must be hard for you admitting to, obviously, some cases, some strangers, exactly what problems you're having. So for that on its own is to be commended, to be honest with you. You're actually doing it and actually showing people that people just like them are having issues, and this is the time to talk. Let me just quickly go through the chat before we go over to Ben. So it looks like chat, yes, we've got people. So hi, Josephine, which is my mother, funnily enough, if anyone got the name in there. She's tuning in tonight, so give her a shout out. Right, moving on from mothers, we've got Richard Creedy, so he says it's loud and clear. Peter's saying evening all. We've got Facebook user, if you can click the link in chat I'm about to put in a second, then your name will be shown. But basically they're saying good evening, Haley and Rich from Phase 4 Computers in Harrogate. Here we can hear you loud and clear and all's fine. We've got Cormac from Ireland. He's saying hi all. We've also got good evening from Richard Forth as well, saying good evening It's the same thing. Oh, he's put his name in, I see, this time. So, and Alison saying, hello, everyone. Hope you're all well. And Cormy says, hi, Phil's mum. Hello from Ireland. Right, okay. So let's go over to Ben next. So, Ben, if you want to introduce yourself and basically tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. I'm Ben Ashcroft. I run Bugs and Bytes Computing, supplying laptops to end users and trade sales. Gaming PCs as well, desktops. Yeah. I want to come on the show tonight just to sort of, obviously, the whole mental health thing. You know, I've had my own sort of issues over the years. So basically, I was diagnosed dyspraxic at about 6 or 7 years old, and slightly autistic as well. I had a lot of issues in school. I'm not going to lie, school was absolutely horrendous. My parents have been absolute rocks for me growing up, but yeah, I'll go into that in further detail sort of shortly, you know.
That's no problem. Thank you there, Ben. And again, thank you for being honest. And yes, Hayley, we can see your name now, so that's brilliant. Thank you. Right, let's move on then to Naz. So Naz, if you want to introduce yourself, obviously you're someone that people who are watching the show have not seen, someone they've not seen before. They have probably no clue who you are. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, let everyone know who you are, what you do, job title and everything like that. Feel free.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nasir Shah. Call me Naz. I'm a locum consultant psychiatrist working in Dunfermline in Scotland, and that's how I came across this lovely man, Will. And he basically helped me out with my computer issues. But I must put my hand up. I know a bit about mental health, but I absolutely don't know about how a computer works. So that's how I know Will, and I'm honored to be invited to this chat today. And any questions? I mean, I was thinking of a kind of an interactive episode, and if I could help out with any of the questions anybody has for me regarding mental health, that will be great.
Okay, thank you for that, Naz, for introducing yourself. So, right, guys, so if you have any questions or if you're having any, problems yourself, you're feeling a bit of stress, you want to know where to reach to or who to call, now's the time to ask, and don't be shy. Even after the show, if you do feel that there were some questions you had and you didn't get them answered or whatever, feel free to send me a message or an email or whatever. Most of you got my email address, and basically I'll forward on what you can or basically see what the best solution is for you. Also, if you want to send me a private message, if you are in the Facebook group and you want to send me a private message or a question now, feel free. Just send me a message over and I'll read it out without mentioning your name if you just don't want to be mentioned, which is absolutely fine. It's totally up to you. Right. Okay. So let's go a little bit more into the chat. So first, we got Call Me talking to my mother. That's going to be an interesting conversation. So let's have a look. So we've got hi evening all, basically from Facebook user. Again, you need to click that link, guys, if you haven't, so your name's shown. And we got Call Me again talking to my mother, and he's saying, delighted you a lot of doing this. Like most people, I had issues myself. So yeah, one thing I'm surprised about actually is when I announced this show that we were doing this show, I think actually we've been asked a few times to do this, but we've been figuring out how to actually do it. I think Will was probably one of the first people to mention it when we first started doing live shows, probably a year ago, I think it was. So that's been in the notes, and but once we actually decided to do this, the amount of people who've messaged me who said they want to be on the show and actually do this is actually quite a lot. Unfortunately, we can't have that many people on the show, otherwise it gets a bit chaotic. But I'd just like to say thank you for sharing and actually being honest, because I must have had, normally we get probably about 4 or 5 people interested in doing a show. I had it must have been at least 15 people message me. A lot of people who've never been on the show saying they wanted to take part. So I'd just like to say thank you and sorry that you couldn't be on at the same time. So right, okay, so let's go around the room then. Let's go back to you, Will. So if you want to go a little bit more in depth or tell us what sort of stresses or what's causing you problems, and then we'll go back to Nas, which will probably go a bit more depth into why people are having problems generally as well.
Yeah, so basically it was around about 2010 I think I've suffered from depression throughout my life, but not really knowing how to deal with it, or not really knowing to talk about it really. And I've seen some doctors and counselling and things like that through work. And I was working full time at the time, and about 2010 time, that's when I was diagnosed with depression. And it's one of these things that comes and goes. To start with, I was struggling with everything, and there was no reason for it. I couldn't put my finger. I like to fix issues for people. I like to help people, but I couldn't figure out what was going on in my head myself. I couldn't put my finger on why I was getting so upset over the slightest thing. And going right back, I think things always go back to when your childhood. That was sort of fine. Everything was fine there. Or was it? Again, I'm not really sure. So anyway, yeah, diagnosed with depression, and I've had it really bad over the last few years. COVID came along, obviously, and stopped all the social interaction with people. But not that I'd want to social interact with some people anyway, because having the motivation to go and do so, and just it's affected everything in my life. Going and speaking to people, or going out to the pub to meet up with people. I always had a reason for cancelling, and always didn't want to go. And I found it quite difficult to go and actually do these things, get the motivation to do it. And how it affects business-wise is that, I'll sit and say, right, I've got this laptop here to fix. And then a few days later, it's still there to fix because I've just not got the motivation to go and do something that I really love. I love working with tech and getting to know tech and playing around with it and learning. But it's just, the depression it sits on top of your shoulders, and it's tough going. And just to let people know how I met Naz is he had a computer problem, and I stay next to the hospital where he works. So thankfully he found me on Google. I was reaching the top search on Google, and that's how I got to know Naz. And just briefly, I think, Naz, when I first met you, because I knew what you do, I just for some reason come out and said, yeah, I suffer from mental health problems as well. So I think it was, it's just probably because of who you are, and that's where I spouted out. And it's not something that I often do. I chat with Ben, actually. Ben's been a good help on Messenger, things like that. And it's funny because I've met more people in the group that's experienced mental health problems compared to friends outside of work. And friends, it's whether it's because you don't want to speak face to face about it, whether because you're on Messenger chatting with each other, you're not showing your face or admitting things. And yeah, so me and Ben often have a wee witching hour, we call it, at night, where we have a wee chat at night about things. And yeah, it's handy. The group's been great for things, for chatting with people. But yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about myself. But it'd be interesting to hear from people how they manage their work, suffering from depression. And I know there's other people within the group that have medical issues and within work. It's not just depression. There's other people that's got other issues and things like that. So yeah, I'm always open to ears to see how we manage things like that in the workplace.
Yeah, I suppose everyone does it slightly different. Go ahead, Naz.
Well, thank you for that, Will. It takes a lot of courage to kind of talk about your own mental health. I must say, mental health has been historically quite stigmatized. People don't like to come out. They would say any other illness, but as far as the mental health goes, somehow there is a barrier there, socially or otherwise. So I appreciate you coming out with this, because that's the clue. Because if you don't talk about it, if it is the society doesn't accept it, if you go back in the shell, it won't be resolved. At the end of the day, we are social animals. We need each other. We need other contact with other human beings to talk through our problems, share our good, bad, and ugly. I mean, and that's the issue. Hopefully, it is getting better. The stigma, I must say, I'm glad that it is getting better, but still there. And COVID hasn't helped, unfortunately, because COVID has basically isolated us. We no longer can meet other people. We can no longer have an interaction, meaningful human contact. and that has caused a lot of stress in a lot of people. I've seen this in my patients because of the COVID. The number of depression, anxiety has shot up. Uh, unfortunate, Unfortunately, but things are getting better, hopefully. So, uh, thank you for sharing that. It was cathartic. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Let me ask you a question, Nas, before we go over to Ben. Is
Yeah.
what exactly is mental health? So, for those people who obviously don't realize what exactly is
Yeah.
classed as mental health.
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, let me put it this way. Since you are mostly in computer experts, there's hardware and software with brain. The different lobes and different parts of the brain that have different functions and so on and so forth is the hardware. The way it works, our thoughts, the software part is where I come in. The psychiatry is everything to do with the software, the working of the brain, which contains thought processes, analysis, emotions, all kind of emotions that you can think of. And one when uh, the there is an arbitrary kind of a line where things are supposed to be normal. For example, all of us get depressed. All of us have happy times. All of us have sad times. It's part of being a human. It's part of the human experience. But when you're, say, stuck in a low mood where you can't get out of that mood, where you feel constantly depressed without any reason, you feel loss of energy, you feel loss of enthusiasm, get up and go, uh, nothing gives you pleasure, your sleep is affected, you don't enjoy your food. Uh, that's essentially depression, and we call it a name. That condition is called depression. So whatever, so various diagnoses, various aspects of psychiatric conditions have the symptoms are clumped into one diagnosis, and that's what we study, and that's what people have, and that's what we tease out those symptoms, and we diagnose and try to treat it. And in terms of treatment, there is medications, there is talking therapies, which are getting popular and are effective. And of course, the social support and so forth. Support from psychiatric team, which is important, which is to help fellow human beings to understand their problems and then try to overcome it. So mental illness is basically a software problem of the brain.
Right, okay. I think that was a pretty good answer. I think you know a bit more about computers than you're letting on, actually, if you know the difference between hardware and software. Right, okay. So let's just say to the chat game, guys, you're a little bit quiet. I can see there's a lot of you watching, but you're a bit quiet. If you do have any questions, even if it's not related to yourself, it might be a family member or a friend, feel free to ask. Naz is here to basically, well, answer your questions, whether you are a technician or if you're, I don't know, talking about your wife who stays at home, looks after the kid, or your husband who does the same thing, or even your own kids or parents or anything like that. I'm pretty sure Naz will be able to point you in the right direction, or at least start the conversation going anyway. Right, let's go on to Ben then. So, Ben, you're up. So, tell us a little bit about your problems, what you're having, or how you've been addressing them and so forth.
So basically, like I sort of said in my introduction, I've got dyspraxia, and I'm slightly autistic. It's basically dyspraxia is to do with the signals to the brain, and that you don't quite sort of use them the right way, or you don't receive them the right way, sort of thing. And I've had issues myself with anxiety. I've had a lot of issues with anxiety, possibly even depression as well. I'm less so sure of that. But, I mean, I had a lot of issues in my 20s. I had a lot of sort of panic attacks that could go on for days and days and days. And like what William said, you just lose your motivation. You just sort of don't want to get up. It's a real struggle to sort of fight your way through that, you know. It's the sort of it's a bit tricky because dyspraxia, not related to dyslexia, by the way. A lot of folk confuse it with dyslexia. My spelling is absolutely brilliant. But the dyspraxia, autism, and Asperger's, I believe, are all very much on the similar spectrum. And I can see certain traits in me relating to the autism. It's like, I hate to say it, addictive behavior. Like, I'm always 100% with something, or I'm nothing at all. You know, I can't there's no happy medium for me. You know, whether that be sort of interests, that sort of thing, or stuff I do outside of work. Fortunately, I've managed to stay away from devices like smoking and drugs and gambling and stuff. I've kept off of that, so that's probably not a bad thing. But yeah, for sure, it's a struggle. It's I mean, my schooling was nothing short of horrendous. I ended up going to 4 different schools. Lived in like a hospital ward for a couple of years. Got sent to boarding school for a couple of years, which was really awful. And then came back and was in mainstream school, and it left its mark. It did. I can't say it didn't leave its mark. My parents were my absolute rock because they were so supportive throughout it all, and they basically got me back into mainstream school with the support. But I never fitted in when I was at school, and to a certain degree that carried over into adulthood. You know, it's I struggle. I've got friends, and I think if folks speak to me, they sort of think I'm quite sort of personable and have a laugh, but I find it sort of stressful as well. You know, it does make things more interesting, shall we say? You know, I think there's a lot of folk, probably more folk, who work in computing. It's probably one of the higher industries, I would say, for people with mental health issues. I may be wrong with this. I've not done any sort of full-on research on this, but I get the impression, because I know, for instance, quite a lot of people with autism who work in computing, Asperger's, that sort of thing. And I think it's to do with the fact that you're working with machines. You're not working perhaps with other sort of humans and stuff like that. You know, I don't know. Like I said, I'm sort of guessing that, but yeah, it's it's difficult times for sure.
Yeah,
I think you've done well, Ben, because one of the well, it's my personal opinion, but one of the things the school tries to do is try to fit people in boxes. You know that I think it was Einstein who said, if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its life thinking it's stupid. You know, it's one of those things.
I love that, by the way. I love that phrase. It's brilliant.
Yeah. So yeah, I think you've done well. It is. I mean, all of us, we are humans. We are supposed to be different. You know, in different strengths and weaknesses and so on and so forth. And having dyspraxia and having autism, it is different. I wouldn't say less or more, because it is within the human experience to have that. You know, the thought processes of someone having autism is slightly different. Yeah, and it does take and the society kind of anything different, either they fear or they, you know, it is something, it is not to be ashamed of to start with. It is not to be don't put yourself down, don't get anxious, because that's the worst thing you can do. You know, there's nothing bad about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Nothing. Don't try to imply it is something on the negative side. Yeah, you are what you are. All of us, every human being, we have our own strengths. We need to be comfortable in your own skin. You need to play the cards right. You're dealt cards that may be good or bad. It's not your fault, but the trick is to play them well. And I think you have done well.
Well, thank you very much. I think being self-employed and running the business was something that was always going to end up happening to me at some point, because I I say this in a nice manner. I'm not some sort of control freak, but I like having control. And I think the sort of control comes from not being in control. Was at school. I got a yeah, it was horrendous. Like I said, I mean, I shan't go into too much, but being in a situation where you're out of control for that long and having to go through what comes and just deal with it, sort of thing. You know, it's my parents said from a very early age, you're always going to end up working for yourself at some stage, and they're absolutely right. You know, it's, yeah.
I bet you like things organized rather than control. I don't know whether control has a negative connotation, but do you kind of like things to be in a particular way, in your way?
I like my routine. I mean, a bit of change now and again doesn't do any harm, but I like my routine. You know, it's I think the biggest thing and the most important thing with sort of something like the autism, like I say, I'm quite mild. I've got a friend who's quite severely autistic, and I only met him a couple of weeks ago actually, and it's really strange because it's like he's just turned 18, and it's like looking back on my younger self. It's really strange, but the thing is, I found the thing that sort of helps is to try and use what you might perceive as a not good aspect of it, and try and turn that into a positive. Like, for instance, this lad that I met, he's not particularly social. He's quite socially awkward, bless him. But he's got an incredibly high IQ. He's actually got a higher IQ than Stephen Hawking, which I think is amazing. And so he's doing a degree, and he's absolutely sailing through his degree. You know, he's making the best of what he's got, sort of thing. You know, and I think that's important. You know, and I think in terms of that, like running the business, I can put some of my sort of things to better use, or some of my characteristics to better use. If that makes sense.
It does. People with mild autism or autism spectrum, they like jobs like, say, librarian, where the books have to be kept in a particular order. Even doctors, to be honest with you, doctors, engineers, can be in the autistic or Asperger's kind of a spectrum. And say the flight control, not flight control, what to call it, the ground air traffic controllers. So where things have to be in a definite pattern or ways, autistic people excel in that. So and computers is one of them, I must say. Dealing with computers is one of them. So you've done well.
Right. And so that's definitely some interesting information there. I'm going to say, think about it the way, obviously, there's a lot of computer experts and stuff who don't like dealing with people and customers, and they just prefer to deal with, obviously, well, the stuff what can't answer them back a lot of the time is probably the best way of putting it. But yeah, I can definitely see that. Right, we've definitely got a few questions coming in for you now, Naz. That's for sure. So everyone's suddenly woken up. So, right, first one is from Cormy. He says, "This is for you, Naz. Any tips how to switch off from business?" So basically, especially for self-employed people, because obviously our business is our livelihood. It's a bit like having a kid in some ways, to be honest with you. So switching off from that's going to be difficult.
Yes. Well, I would say organization. Basically, set times in your life, planning. Whatever you want to do. If you want to do, say, weekly or daily or whatever, better still daily. Stick to timings. This particular time is your working or whatever you're doing work-wise. This much time is your family. This much time is also your sleep, your recreation, in everything that you do. Set timing and stick to it, because it's very easy to go overboard. And this is the major difference that I see, experience in the distinction between an employee and the self-employed, because employee 9 to 5, and that's it. I mean, it's easy to switch off. 9 to 5, do whatever you're asked for or supposed to do, and that's it. That doesn't have to be anything more than that. Whereas self-employed, you're responsible for your own business. You worry about what if, there are so many variables, what ifs and all that. and you always worry about things going downhill because you are the one responsible for your own business, whether it will, whichever way it goes. So it's very easy to get into this overworking, into doing too much, doing too much work, and neglecting the other aspects of your life, which are equally important. Your health, for example, regular exercise, your dietary intake, eat at particular time and sufficient amount, and healthy eating, and all that. Family time, including parents, children, wife, partner, whatever. So it's all about planning and planning ahead and sticking to it. Of course, this may change. If your business is going into trouble, then you may probably think of giving it a bit more time. And if you have any other issues like family issues or whatever, you may give it more time. It may change. But having a set routine and planning would help.
Yeah, good advice.
Okay. Good one. Do you, Ben or Will, do anything similar to that? Have a set routine? What you find what helped you?
For me, where this is probably where the slight differences are with like Ben's issues. For me, I find that scheduling things, I start to think about it, and it starts to drive me crazy sometimes. If I start to schedule things and I know I've got to do it, because I have a feeling that I'm going to let myself down or let other people down. So that's why I'm a bit of a more sporadic person, like work, if I know I've got computers to repair or this to do, and I enjoy work, I enjoy computer work, so it motivates me to go and do some. But general wise, if I plan time with my family and things like that, it's in the back of my mind. What if I can't make it? What if I'm having a bad day? And it can upset me. Yeah, being honest, it can. It's tough. It can upset me. Whereas I can understand where Ben's coming from. He needs the organisation. He needs the structure, and I get that. I completely get it. Yeah.
It's funny you should say that actually, because one thing I probably don't have is organisation and structure my working hours. For your benefit, as I work from home, I don't have a shop, so it's very difficult to shut the door to the office and just leave things. I've got better at it. I got myself a second phone for sort of out of hours, and I leave the old one, the work one, in a box in the office. But yeah, I think I speak for a lot of business owners when I say it's very difficult, especially if you work from home, just to down tools and close the door, because you still know when you're sitting in the sofa what's to be done the next day and all the emails you've not replied to or sent. And it's just very different because your business is your baby at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, good points there. Let's move on to the next question. This one's from Mrs. Alison Cook. It says, what's the biggest way to help someone who may be struggling, Naz?
There's no one way. First thing to do is kind of on your own level, try to find out what's the issue. And depending upon what comes out, probably refer to the appropriate specialist service. It's a very generalized question. I don't know how to answer that.
I think being able to talk about things is a good start as well, isn't it?
Yeah, people with mental health, I must say, they need someone to talk to. I think if you can be that person who they can confide to and then open up, you know what they say, trouble or problem shared is problem halved. Just talking to them maybe sometimes much helpful. And if you feel at that time that they need something more, then take it further.
Yeah, good points there. I suppose it's a bit like with physical problems. You don't go and see the same doctor about all your different issues. You'll go see a specialist for your back, one for your feet, and so forth. Is there a general, what would you say is the best contact for people if they think they have got some sort of mental issue or problem or anything like that, do you think something is there like a popular website or call center where people can get more advice?
I would say GP, general practitioner, because the GPs, any problem, unless it's an emergency, the first point of contact for health, mental or physical, should be the general practitioner. They then are trained to identify that problem and then refer on to a specialist in that particular area. So, yeah, I would say, and of course, there is a lot of information online, but I do find this tragic actually, because things that you Google, you start with a headache and you come out thinking that you have a tumor or something. It's double-edged sword. It's a good source of information, the internet, but sometimes it doesn't go the way it should. You may end up with a totally different conclusion. So, if I think a professional like a GP would probably be the best source. Or there, of course, in some GP surgeries, there are psychiatric nurse specialists. They are another source of information or advice in the first instance.
Okay, that's a pretty good answer there. So, yeah, I must admit we get a lot of issues in our trade as well, where people Google stuff to try and fix the computer. And I suppose it's a similar thing with health: is people Google stuff and they don't always get the right answer, or some random person's written it just because of their own experience doesn't necessarily mean it's going to fix their problem. So, yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from on that one. Right, we've got a big question coming in. Let me put that one on screen. So this one is from Ian. He says, "Do you think CBT is better than pills, or is it a person dependent? My partner suffers from SADS, SADS, and depression, and it takes its toll on me with my anxiety and built up anger. Do I need to do CBT or alternative therapy? Would it help? I tried to talk, and it's hiding the rest of it off. Let's have a look. But like men, he keeps it all in basically, although I'm better at talking to her and my friends."
Short answer, it's person dependent. But if this one sounds like a bit complicated, to be honest with you, I would suggest get professional help, because each of the therapies, CBT and medications, antidepressants or other medications that we use in psychiatry, each has a role. It has to be tailored to a specific person. There needs to be conditions right for that, looking at possible side effects and all that. It's more complicated than that. When we talk about complex therapies like this, I think rather than me giving a generalized information, it's better that you get help from a specialist, which would probably be a psychiatrist, or GPs are trained to treat simple depressions. They come to us only when things get a bit complicated. CBT is sometimes available in GP surgeries. CBT these days, there's a trend for online CBT. Anybody can try that, but I would say if you are in any doubts about medication versus CBT, if it is bad enough to be in that stage, I would say go see a specialist.
Can I just pick up there a wee thing
Yeah.
there? I could sympathise there with Ian and seeing what he's saying there, because a lot of the time, because I didn't know what was going on with myself, it does drive you, to anger, and you may not want to take that anger out on people intentionally, but sometimes it can happen, whether it be a customer or whether it be your own support group and things like that. And I spoke to my GP about it, and I'm fortunate enough to have a good GP who was practically on speed dial for me when I was going through my worst time. And I went to some psychology courses and psychology counselling and things like that. But then I asked, I thought there was something else going on here, and that's why I asked if I could go and see a psychiatrist about it. And I'm on medication just now, and I'll openly say that, because I think it's important that you're honest and you talk. That's one of the things that I've sort of picked up on through my own experiences is that it's important to talk to someone. And unfortunately, my wife is my rock. I speak to her about everything, even the good stuff, the bad stuff, the ugly stuff, and we just have an open chat about it. And Ian, I'm sure that you don't want to be in the position you're in with anger and stuff like that. So yeah, CBT. I think each NHS region has different links to help, because one of the areas that I've got help in is the Mood Cafe. It's a website called Mood Cafe, and that helped as well in chatting and things like that. But yeah, go and speak to your doctor about it. Yeah, that's what I've done, and it helped. It does help.
Okay, that's pretty good. Thank you for that. Right, we've got a few questions about sleeping by the looks of it. Let's have a look, see if I can find them. Okay, so Richard was saying, let's have a look. Oh, no, that wasn't Richard. Oh, yeah, it is. I was going to ask that question, Comey. Some nights I can't turn off my brain, and it certainly affects my sleep. And also a Facebook user that didn't put the name in. Any suggestions for helping to get to sleep? Some nights I'm still so wired from work that it keeps me up, which then leads to frustration, making it harder to sleep. Vicious cycle ensues.
Sleep is very important. It's unfortunately one of those neglected areas that we don't, we fell into this trap very easily. In fact, I've seen this trend of my patients losing sleep, especially because I don't know whether you realize. COVID is a cause of stress. It's a background stress which never goes away. And the first victim of this stress is sleep. There's something called sleep hygiene. You can read about it. Please read it in a good, authentic websites, NHS or whatever. I'll give you a few tips, but read in details in the websites. Basically, sleep hygiene says not to exercise too closely to the time of sleep. Don't go to bed unless you're sleepy. No stimulants, including cigarettes or coffee or tea or whatever, close to bedtime. Do something which distracts you, like read a book if it puts you to bed, and read something that helps you sleep, not something horror or something. So the important message here is sleep is important. Do not neglect that. Different people have different methods how to get into sleep. If it is a real problem, if you are really struggling, I would say get professional help or go to your GP, because don't neglect this aspect of not sleeping, because the stress and the effect on mental health. The brain needs certain amount of rest. It heals. The brain heals itself when you're sleeping. If you don't get that time, the stress will carry on to the next day and the next day. It can cause depression, anxiety, all sort of mental health issues down the line. So do not neglect it. Get your self-help. As I said, read about sleep hygiene. And if that doesn't work, get some help. But do not neglect sleep. It's one of those important things.
Okay, thank you for that. We've also got a Facebook user saying, think it's great how open and honest you guys are being. So yes, Ben, and obviously Will and everyone else is commenting as well. Let's make talking about it, having depression is something having depression is something more socially acceptable. So he's saying well done to you guys for basically being open. I say he, it might be a she. We also got Richard Creedy saying, let's have a look. I was lucky when my bout of depression started back in 1919, 2000. I was going through a divorce, made redundant, and I had to move house 4 times. Wow, moving house once is a bad thing, but 4 times, that must have been mental. This all happens in 18 months. I got in the car, drove a couple of 100 miles to where I spent some of my, and it's hiding, or some of his youth. A friend phoned me asking where I was. I told her she didn't need to worry about me anymore, and she told me to come back. I realized then something was wrong, and when I got back, I called the docs and I was diagnosed with depression. I had a month's worth of SRT. I'm not sure what that is, but Naz will probably tell me, and have been lucky enough to be okay since. Early diagnosis, I believe, is key. So that was from Richard Creedy. Well, first of all, what's SRT?
I have no idea.
Richard, you want to let us know what SRT is?
Is it SSRI?
SRT, he said. The only thing I get...
SSRIs are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They are one of the groups, and one of the 3 groups of antidepressants. But right. SRT, I'm not very sure.
Yeah, the only thing I get when I search SRT is the Shetland Recreational Trust. So I don't think that's exactly what he was on about.
I'm guessing it is SSRI, but I may be wrong.
Yeah. He was saying basically early diagnosis is key. So it sounds like you obviously it was lucky your friend called you when she did and so forth, and you actually went to see a doctor. So do you find that early diagnostics is a big diagnosis? I'm talking about computers here. Diagnostics. Diagnosis is a key, Naz.
Absolutely. It's very important to catch things early, because without help, things may get much worse than they should. I mean, depression, anxieties, they can heal themselves, I must say. People do heal themselves, I'm sorry. But it is better to get help earlier. Something just crossed my mind. Four times he changed his house. In the hierarchy of stresses in one's life, the changing of the house, not many people realize, is the 3rd most stressful event you can go through. If my memory serves me right, first is death of your partner, husband or wife or whatever. Second is divorce, and I think he went through divorce as well, and moving house. Bless him, that must be a rough time.
Yeah, so made redundant as well.
Oh yes, yeah, financial troubles as well. So but the trick here is to identify that you are going through tough times and you need help, and please don't feel shy in asking help. This goes back to what we talked about earlier about stigma on mental health and all that. It's very easy to shy away, and men especially, we have this thing about being macho. I will deal with this on my own terms, and this and that. It can be detrimental, that attitude. So get help. It's nothing. It's worthwhile to get help and get rid of these problems before it gets worse.
Yeah, I'm going to say if you're unsure, probably best to get checked up on. So that's definitely.
Can I ask a quick question? I asked my doctor and counsellor once, who do doctors go to when they get stressed, and who to speak to? You know what I mean? Is there a doctor for the doctor?
Yes, there's no particular doctor for the doctor. But if you are working as a doctor, you know other doctors. Just like if you're working in computers, you probably know other people who can help you out with any kind of problem. It's one of those network. So your friends, when you are a doctor, you know enough doctors to. But the thing is, first we need to identify that that problem that you are having, if you don't identify, or if you try to suppress it or neglect it, that will be a problem. So we basically call up each other, and in organization setting, every therapist has a therapist of their own. It's a hierarchy. So if you are having some problems, you go to your superior or your colleague, and you discuss it out and resolve it that way.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so that's pretty good. One thing I'm seeing and noticing more and more is obviously you don't always know when people have obviously got problems. And say if it's obviously a physical issue, obviously you in a lot of cases you can see if they're limping or struggling walking or holding the back or whatever. But mental issues, you just don't know if someone's got one or not. For example, I didn't know how Will had any problems. I didn't know Ben had. I didn't know Cormac had in the past, or Ian and so forth. So it's one of those things is you just don't know sometimes, and you'll see these people, you just don't know what people are going through, and I think that's pretty obvious by what's been said tonight up to now. Right, for the guys in chat, if you have got any more questions or anything you would like to share with us, feel free to send it in. If you want to private message me, if you're in the Facebook group, feel free. You can see my name in the chat. Just click my name and click message and send me a private message, and I won't mention your name. Feel free. Right, is there anything else you would like to add, Will, Ben, or Naz, to the conversation, what we haven't talked about already?
I think what we need is Eurosoft to write a PC mind check, so we can run that through our heads. That's a computer company, Naz, called Eurosoft, that run diagnostics for PCs. That's what we need for our brain, diagnostic check. But no, I find the group has helped with a lot of different things. Just being able to come on here, I never thought I'd be able to come on and do a show about mental health issues and things like that. But yeah, it's the group's help. The group is like friends, and you chat away to people, and you know, it's good. So thanks, Phil and Jenny, for organising and doing the group. So yeah, it's been really helpful.
Okay, I'm glad in whatever way, if it's tech related or even obviously health related or anything that we can help out, we'll try in the group and the community and do what we can. What about yourself, Ben? Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Just to echo what's already been said about it's really important to talk. I went through a long spell where I didn't talk to anybody about how I was feeling about the whole situation. I've never been on any medication. I've just sort of fought my way through life, sort of thing. If you are, I'm pretty good now. I've been like about a year since I had really properly bad anxiety, and I think it's on the way down now, thankfully. So it's but yeah, talking is key, and it's okay not to be okay. That's very cliche. I know it's like probably been said on social media enough times, but it genuinely is okay not to be okay. We've all got our own battles in life, whether they're physical or whatever, you know.
That sounds pretty good. I do have a message watch come through, a private message, so I'm not obviously going to mention the name, but basically they're saying that their partner is basically constantly telling them that there's something wrong with them and they need to get themselves checked out, but they don't think there is anything wrong with themselves. What would you say to that one, Naz?
Get professional help and go together. Let the GP or someone see them together. That's the best way, because you need to know the both sides of the story, so to speak, on whether one is so yeah, take it to the professional, because either of them could be wrong, either of them could be right. You never know.
Yeah, it's best to get it checked out, because you never know which one's right, do you?
Exactly.
Okay, that's a good question. The one common thing what people seem to be saying or have said in the chat and on here is that a lot of time that obviously the family and friends has helped a lot for them and so forth, but not everyone does have obviously family around and so forth. Do you know if there's any sort of like special groups or meetings that people could go to, like for support, or would that be something like a GP would recommend or something like that?
There are a lot of groups, but it is specific to a condition. It's a for example, Alzheimer's Society or their carers group for Alzheimer's. This is just giving an example, random example. So it's for the carers who has a loved one who has Alzheimer's, and there's a group for carers who have specific challenges to deal with Alzheimer's, for example. So depending upon what condition you have or what uh, problem there is, there are support groups for that particular issue. So I can't tell you which every support groups there is, but if you want generalized support, then I would say identify what hobby you have or something you are interested in. For example, what I'm trying to say is this group, the chat we are having right now, your group is bound by the common love for computers, or you're in computer business, or it's something to do with computers. Yeah.
Yep.
So find something that you're interested in, and the best way to make friendship and connections with other people is having a common experience or a common interest or topic or to talk about. So as I said earlier, the socialization is very important. We are human. We are social animals. So we need to have that contact, and the best way to find reason to socialize is to find an interest, and then find the group of people that are interested in that particular uh, interest group or whatever. And social media does help. For example, Facebook or whatever. You just Google whatever topic you're interested in, and you are likely to find a group of people who would be interested in that, and then you can take it from there as your support group, or people you can chat to or find information and so on and so forth.
Right. That's
add something in as well, Phil. I think with the whole mental health thing, one thing I personally found helps a lot is get involved in sports. You basically meet. I've met a lot of my friends through sports. I did sort of a bit of running, and I did a bit of triathlon and cycling and time trials and stuff in the last few years. And it certainly helps to lift your mood, because obviously the buzz you get when you do the sport and stuff like that. I completely sort of went away, didn't do any sports till I was in my late 20s, because my experience of sports when I was at school was horrendous, because I was the guy that my coordination's crap, basically. I can't kick in and save my life, and two left feet. So I shied away from it, because early childhood experience, again, you hated it at school, so why would you enjoy it when you're an adult, sort of thing. But I have to say, I've probably met my best friends through sport, and the way it makes you feel, it really does help. Running especially helps the mental health aspect of things.
I suppose it works differently for everyone. It could be an art group, it could be a knitting group, or whatever you're interested in. And if you're into moaning and stuff like that, maybe even the neighbourhood watch or something will probably do you good. But it was good to hear that you saw. You mentioned social media. It's actually good for something for a change. Naz, I'm going to say it gets a lot of stick sometimes, social media. So it's good that you said it can actually help. But I suppose there's other ways it can probably not help so much as well. I'm guessing in some cases, but right. Okay, it looks like Richard did mention regarding his STR or SRT or whatever it was. He says it could have been SSRI. It was a long time ago. My understanding was it was replacing the serotonin, as in serotonin replacement therapy. Apparently.
I see. SSRI is the term that we use nowadays, and it is selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. It's a bit complicated, but it's a group of medications that are antidepressants, and sertraline, fluoxetine, paroxetine, citalopram. They are the medications that come under SSRIs.
Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. Right, guys, it's been pretty much an hour dead on the spot, so I'll just go quickly around the chat again, or people who are on live with me. So Will, Ben, and Naz, if there's anything you guys would like to add before we call it the end to the show, feel free. So let's go to you, Will. Is there anything you would like to add?
I think everything, we've said a lot, and I think the key that if you could take anything from this is to communicate. Try your best to communicate and speak to people. Send me a WhatsApp or a messenger if anyone wants to chat to me, even within the group. I think key is communication. I know it's tough. I know you can struggle to do that, but there is someone there that can listen to you and help you and things like that. So yeah, don't Google it. Don't use Dr. Google, because that's what causes problems, I think. But go to good websites like the NHS or Samaritans, websites like that. They're there to help as well. So yeah.
That's pretty good. What about yourself, Ben? Have you got anything you would like to add on?
I don't. I think the guys have summed it up quite well.
Right. Okay, that's pretty good. What about yourself, Naz? Any final thoughts?
Well, I completely agree with Will, as in talk about it. Don't be shy in expressing yourself, expressing how you're feeling, especially if you're not so good. Get help, because we have been doing this for thousands of years. We find that's why this is where humans have historically helped each other out, and some of us have specialized in this area, and hence me talking to you here. But you can just help a lot just by talking, just by letting the person ventilate and express their feelings. And let's remove the stigma of mental health from our society. I think that's the way forward to having a good mental health in all of us.
Okay, well, that's absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much for those thoughts and joining us tonight, Naz. I think the basics there is basically talk. If you're not sure, if someone thinks you've got problems, your GP's on at the end of the phone, or at least the end of the road, or wherever it may be, and they're the best people who are going to be doing it. I know there's probably one or two issues with all the COVIDs and getting appointments these days, but just keep on them, and I'm pretty sure you'll get sorted sooner or later, hopefully sooner. Yeah, I'd really like to say especially to Will and Ben for coming on tonight, because obviously sharing their issues with all you people. I haven't looked at the numbers yet, but it could be a few hundred people on here watching, and you've shared basically your innermost problems and so forth, and how you deal with them and so forth. So that's to be commended, and I think you both deserve a medal for it, to be honest with you, because it's quite hard to admit when you have got, let's just say, a problem or a fault, or there's something you can't do and so forth, and a lot of people hide things. So again, thank you, Will and Ben, and everyone as well who commented in the chat, and people who wanted to be on the show as well, which unfortunately we didn't have enough room for. So again, thank you very much. And obviously thank you for Naz for coming on here. He didn't have to come on. He's not a member of Tech for Techs or anything like that, but he has actually been on tonight and actually obviously answered all your questions. And I think if anything to come from this, it's basically, if you are having issues, it's talk. Yeah. So again, thank you guys. On the way out, I just have to play a small advertisement. So if you've gone by then, albeit we have to pay the bills and everything. So, but I would just like to say thank you again, Will. Thank you again, Ben, and thank you, Naz, for joining us tonight. And again, thank you, everyone in chat. If you do want to have any more questions or anything like that, just send me a message or anything, and I'll try and put you in contact with one of these guys if you need to, anyone who's watching. But I think the basics is contact your GP if you are having issues. That way you can get specialist help just for you. Right, so I'll say good night, everyone. We will have a show next Thursday at 8 p.m. We haven't got an exact what it's going to be yet, so but there will be something going off next week at 8 o'clock, so make sure you tune in. Otherwise, we'll see you next week at 8 p.m. And please watch this video, what I'm about to share now. You looking for a great networking solution? Well, Tender has it all. Finding your BT router no longer has the power? Then try one of these from Tender.
Hell yeah!
Is the Wi-Fi on your laptop not working and you need a discreet solution? Well, then get this from Tender.
Hell yeah!
Finding the kids can't get Wi-Fi in the bedroom and they're making your life miserable? Well, you need to get one of these from Tender.
Oh, hell yeah!
Looking for a low-cost solution to get internet into your home office? Then you need to get some of these from Tender.
Hell yeah!
For all your networking needs, trust Tender.
Hell yeah!
And thank you very much for Tender for sponsoring the show tonight. So thank you everyone else as well. I hope you got a good smile out of that advert. So thanks again, and we'll see you all next week.